Hey guys, it's Danny with Fish North Georgia, and today we're talking deep diving crankbaits. But this isn't your typical how-to video. This is Fish North Georgia's local angler series, where we take a local angler, put them on a North Georgia body of water, give them a specific bait, and let them talk about the equipment and the strategies that they'll use to put fish in the boat.
There he is.
So today we spent a few hours on the water with Justin Reynolds. Justin is a young up-and-coming angler from here in North Georgia with consistently high finishes on several of these electric-only tournament trails. And I had heard through the grapevine that he was pretty good with a deep diving crankbait. So we took his boat over to the Latham Reservoir here in Dawson County and spent a few hours allowing him to tell us some of the things he likes to look for when throwing these baits. Now all anglers are a little bit different, and you'll just have to watch the video and decide if what Justin does is right for you. Let's get started. So let's start it off by defining what you think a deep water crankbait is.
I really consider anything 15 and above. 15 foot to 25 foot, that's mainly the deepest you're gonna crank.
What would you be looking for, time of the year, conditions in which you would think that it would be time to pull the crankbait out?
Mostly water temp. When you get out there and that water temp's either getting super hot or super cold, they're going to the deepest part of the lakes.
Okay, and clear water, muddy water, does it matter?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's dark down deep anyways. That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
So when I throw a deep diving crankbait, a lot of times I'm throwing something bright because I'm trying to get a reaction. So I don't deep cranking, I don't worry too much on the visibility. I know there wasn't only one fish up there. I feel like they feel that bait more than they see it. Bottom line, whether it's clear or not clear.
Okay, and what about sound? Some crankbaits have rattles, some do not. Which do you prefer?
I'd say if it was real muddy, I'd definitely be throwing something with a lot of noise. And I'd be throwing something with a lot of noise until they're not biting it. So that was on the Strike King 6XD. See, that's the silent version. That one doesn't have a rattle. See, and I like that when there's a lot of pressure. Well, I feel like with a crankbait with no rattles, they feel the vibration and this and that, but I don't feel like they feel that and recognize it until it's right up on them.
Right.
And they have to make a split-second decision, either eat it or don't.
Justin used 3 rods out on the water today. Let's see his setups for larger deep diving crankbaits like the Strike King 10XD.
So this is an 8-foot flipping stick, actually, made by Wright McGill. It's not as limber as their cranking rod, but I feel like this bait right here is 2 ounces. So I feel like with this rod, I can really hum it out there. And I throw it with a 5-4-1 Lew's laser speed spool. And that just keeps me from wearing myself out all day. I'm able to make a long cast with it and just keep it on the bottom and just kind of winch it in instead of wearing myself out trying to grind all day. So that's what I pick for the big crankbaits.
Fluorocarbon line, I assume?
Actually, I use mono.
Mono, okay.
I am. I'm still old school. I use 10 and 12 pound mono for all my cranking.
Really?
For everything. Actually, the only thing I like to use fluorocarbon on is a worm or a jig.
All right, that's a little different.
Yeah, I'm very different, but it's cheap.
His next setup is a more conventional one, utilizing the flex of the rod for casting and hook sets.
So this is the original Duckett Micro Magic with the small guides on it. It allows the line to go straight through it instead of tangling up, and I can see a big difference in it. Definitely throwing crankbaits. It's 7-11, so it's super long, but it's very parabolic. It's got a lot of bend to it, so when those fish hit it, it's able just to load up. And all I do is just give it a sweeping hook set, and it buries these hooks.
Okay, and what kind of reel do we have on this one?
This is a Quantum Pulse 6:6-1. I like a faster gear ratio for everything but my deep cranking. A lot of people say, oh, throw a 5-4-1 on your crankbaits, you know, to slow it down, blah, blah, blah. I throw a 5-4-1 on my 10XD, but that's just for that reason, so it doesn't wear me down. Because like I feel like when I throw even on the 6XD, I throw a 5-4-1, I feel like I'm not moving a whole lot because I'm just sitting there winching in nothing. I wanna feel that crankbait the whole time.
His next one is an old standard, an all-glass rod.
This is a 7-foot Skeet Reese. This is actually a lipless rod. but I throw a crankbait on it real good. I like throwing the 5XD on it. It's only 7 foot, and this is a full glass rod.
That's what I was going to ask. So this is fiberglass.
This is, yep, full glass, and it's got a lot of bend in it. But like I was saying earlier, you know, you don't have to set the hook on them hard. When you're reeling that crankbait and they bite it, that rod being so flexible allows them to take that bait.
To take the bait.
And then all you got to do is set them hooks. You got 6 treble hooks on here, so usually they're not going to get away.
Okay, a quantum reel again?
Quantum reel, same quantum pulse, 6-to-6 gear ratio.
How does he use his equipment to maximize his chances?
You know, we were casting the 6XD earlier up into about 10 foot of water, and that's a 20-foot diving crankbait. But I just keep my rod high until you feel it hit the bottom, and you know that bank's falling down. So the farther I come down the bank, the lower I'm going to lower my rod tip.
Bringing your rod down like that with the fall?
Just with the fall of the bank.
Okay.
And, you know, earlier we were fishing in 30 foot of water. We found some fish in 30 foot of water. Well, the deepest crankbait I have is 25 foot. Like I can make this thing hit like 28 feet.
Really?
Yeah, with a long cast and 10-pound line. You got to get deep in the water with your rod, but I can hit like 28 feet pretty consistently. That'll get you an extra 2 to 4 foot.
Okay.
And to me, that's the difference between a fish and no fish. You know, if I was to throw this on 15, I'd probably get like 18, 19 foot out of it. And I think a lot of crankbaits are judged on 12-pound. Like when on the package, when it says it dives 25 feet, I think all that's on your standard cast and 12-pound line.
And you said earlier that, you know, you don't really have to set the hook sometimes. The rod, I guess, is what's going to do it for you.
Exactly. I mean, every crankbait you throw is going to have treble hooks on it.
Right.
So when that fish hits, I mean, I just like to lay into them, just sweep. Just like
sweep.
a sweep in action.
Okay, and if your rod is too stiff, possibility of pulling out, or is that more to do in the fight itself?
You know, I feel that on smaller crankbaits, I like to have a limber rod because it is more give. But when you're throwing 10XDs and even 6XDs, you don't have to have a super limber rod because you want to make sure those hooks bite. Biggest thing though is keep it down. Keep your rod down. I've lost a lot of big fish because they try to, definitely on a 10XD, it's so heavy, man, they try to come straight up. I feel that a lot of people fish a tighter drag where when that fish tries to run or tries to jump or something, ends up pulling the hooks out.
Right.
So I fish a pretty loose drag, you know, nothing that it's going to come out with me cranking my crankbait, but where if I hit that fish and it's a big one and he tries to run, he can make my drag slip. That's what I want because something's got to give.
Right.
Either your line's going to break, the hooks are going to pull, or just something's going to happen. I'd rather my drag go out than my line break.
Now that we've seen his equipment, let's look at the deep divers we were throwing today.
All right, well, I like the Strike King series of baits. I've just caught a lot of fish on them. I'm a big believer. Why fix what's not broke?
Right.
This is the 5XD. This 5XD dives down to, they say 15 foot.
We both threw this one. This is a Strike King 10XD. This is designed to run 25 feet.
25 plus, like I said, depending on the line size.
All right, and this is I threw this one today. This is a Norman DD22. It says 11 to 17 feet. I caught both of my fish on this particular one today, but you've got some more examples as well. What you got? I do.
This is a 6XD, which is just a little bit smaller than the 10XD, but it dives about 5 foot difference, where this is a 20-foot diver and this is a 25-foot diver. Okay,
so the difference is
the bill.
The bill right there.
That makes all the difference.
Okay. Even the size of the crankbait doesn't have any of the difference. It's the bill.
I believe it's the bill 100% and how it's designed, because if you see these two baits right here, these are both supposed to dive 25 foot. And there's a huge difference in size.
There are many different ways to retrieve a crankbait. You can reel it fast, you can reel it slow, you can vary your retrieve. What does Justin like to do?
I usually start off, unless it's dead winter, any other time of the year, I start off working it pretty fast. Okay. I'm trying to cover water, and I'm just trying to get a reaction. Gotcha. I don't want that fish to sit there and see my crankbait. I want it to come by him and him just want to eat it.
Are we keeping the bait higher in the water column, or are we keeping contact with the bottom?
Depends on what kind of bottom. You know, if it's a rock bottom, a lot of pebbles, this kind of stuff, you can really grind it, and it's just going to eat. Because you want to be hitting the bottom. I mean, you want to be bouncing off something. But if you're in a nasty mucky bottom with a lot of silt and leaves, it's just going to dig up. So that's where changing your rod positioning, you know, if you're fishing 22 foot with a 10XD, it should dig. Okay, well, I don't need to put my rod all the way in the water because I'm not trying to get to 30 foot.
Right.
So that's where I'm going to hold my rod more pointed straight towards the bait, just to get that action. That, like I said, you got to find the happy medium. You don't want to sit there and dredge the bottom, but you do want to hit the bottom and bounce off things.
What does Justin think about throwing crankbaits in and around brush?
Yeah, you know, like trees like this, I don't mind throwing a crankbait through the end of it, where I think that you get hung up, you lose them sometimes, but I got on a bite last year with a 10XD, actually on this bank right up around the corner. How it drops straight off, well, there's a lot of trees, so I was staying back like this, but I'd cast it up next to the tree and reel it down, kind of just stop it and let it come back. And I did that a couple times, and then they'd hit it. If those fish are in there and you know they're in there, then bring it through. I mean, it's definitely risky. I mean, you got a $15 crankbait.
Right.
It's definitely risky. A lot of times you can get it back, definitely out of brush. These things float like crazy.
Right.
Like if you stop this thing, it's gonna float up quick.
So when you hit a stump and you feel it, do you stop reeling and let the bait back off, or do you try to force it on through?
A lot of times if I'm fishing a tree and I'm visibly trying to bring it through that cover, I'll stop it. Or like I said, it's more of a feel thing too. If you feel it get hung up, I'm gonna let it float back. But if I just feel it hit something, I'm gonna keep reeling and just try to get it to eat through it.
All right, so Justin, man, I appreciate you taking us out fishing today. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with crankbaits. It's something that's not in my repertoire, so to speak. I'm not very confident in them, but after today, I really feel like I have a better understanding of where to throw it, how to throw it, and why to throw it, most importantly.
And that's the main thing, is confidence. In anything you throw is having confidence. And throwing these big crankbaits, I mean, people go by you, they think you're fighting a fish. I mean, you don't know what you got going on. But, I mean, you got to be able to feel. You got to be able to have the right setup to make it all come together.
Man, I sure do appreciate it. Hey guys, I hope you learned something from this video that will encourage you to get out on the water and give deep diving crankbaits a try. If you like videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell so you'll be notified of any future content, and make sure you give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Fish North Georgia. We'll see you soon.